Hello and welcome back to Sound Mythbusters. The topic for this video is going to be cupping the mic as promised. Now, cupping the mic is a miking technique that some singers use where they take their hands and wrap them around the microphone capsule like that, creating a tunnel and singing into it. This technique was used by a number of different artists in a number of different musical styles in the past, but it probably reached the height of its popularity during the second half of the 90s and the early noughties with nu metal music. And in nu metal, clean vocals and distorted screamed vocals are constantly used within the songs. So a lot of nu metal vocalists will generally, sing normally into the microphone, and then when the growling or screaming part comes, they will cup the microphone and sing in it like that. Now, probably because of this, a lot of old school metalers became bitterly opposed to this miking technique. To this day, on the internet or in bars at gigs, you can run into conversations that people are having, and where somebody will be knocking this microphone technique completely, and other people will actually be praising it for a number of reasons. What's important to understand about cupping the mic is that it does two things that are very important. The first trait that it has, it tends to create the auditory illusion of the vocal pitch being lower than it actually is. The second trait is that it tends to boost the level of the vocals a lot due to the tunnel effect created by the hands. People that oppose cupping cite these two traits as a negative, saying that pitch and loudness should be dependent on the vocalist's technique, and therefore cupping the mic is somehow cheating, and there's probably a way for vocalists to get the same sound without cupping. These statements are inaccurate. First of all, because, as I said, the perceived lowering of pitch is actually an illusion created by an extreme type of EQ that the tunnel effect of the hands creates on the capsule by boosting low, mid and low frequencies. But those are frequencies that the vocalist is emitting already to start out with, and therefore the pitch isn't really changed, it's just an illusion. As for the boost and level, well, when it comes to vocals, loudness is not necessarily an indication of good vocal technique. Indeed, especially when it comes to distorted vocals, excessive loudness can lead to straining and, damage of the vocal cords. And a good example of this is actually Cannibal Corpse's singer, Corpse Grinder. If you listen to him talk, his normal voice is destroyed right now. As for you should be able to get the same sound somehow else, in some other way, even without cupping the mic, well, that is inaccurate because cupping the microphone actually sounds like cupping the microphone. There's no other way to imitate that sound. You can maybe imitate it with EQ, but it's not going to sound the same. So like it or not, cupping the microphone is actually a very unique sound that you can't get otherwise. On the other side, we have people that actually support cupping the microphone, and singers that usually do it, they cite the fact that wrapping the hands around the capsule actually isolates their vocals from whatever other sounds may be going on stage or in the rehearsal room, and this, combined with the vocal boost given by the cupping, actually helps them maintain a lower level of vocals and therefore avoid straining on their vocal cords. Now, in an ideal world where professional equipment is used at its best, the singer shouldn't need to do this. The singer should be able to hear himself clearly through the monitor wedges, despite all the other interference going on stage or in the room. And it's the sound engineer's responsibility to make sure that the vocalist can hear himself. The problem is that in fact, in real life, especially when a band is only starting out, gigs, especially small gigs where, you know, maybe there's not a lot of equipment, or the sound engineer isn't very good, or a combination of both, or maybe the sound engineer is good but he's having a lot of problems with the acoustic of the place, or equipment not working. You know, there can arise a number of problems, and it often happens, unfortunately, that the vocalist cannot hear himself clearly enough, and therefore it is very easy to, you know, try and make your vocals louder, and that will inevitably bring to straining. Now, a lot of vocal coaches say that, you know, it's best to trust, as a vocalist, it's best to trust that the audience can hear you, and even if you can't hear yourself, just avoid straining and, you know, just keep on doing your thing. But it's easy to see how much more easier it is to, you know, just cup the microphone and get the extra level, and therefore be able to hear yourself a bit better over the noise. As for the isolation that cupping gives, well, from the isolation point of view, cupping doesn't really do anything. If you wrap your hands around the around the microphone, you may cut down some of the higher frequencies that are flying around in the room, but it will do nothing to stop mid, and low frequencies. And these are usually the most troublesome frequencies, especially live. In fact, a very common problem with cupping is that it actually aids feedback of these frequencies due to the tunnel effect that the hands create. Now, to fully understand how cupping the microphone works and what it sounds like, it's better to experiment by ourselves. So I have here a Shure SM58, which is probably the most popular vocal microphone for live shows and for rehearsals. And I'm just going to plug it into my Pro Tools system here. There's a session here I created before for the purposes of this demonstration. And I'm going to record 3 growls. Now, I am by no means good at this, but for the purpose of the demonstration I should do fine. The first growl I'll record with the correct microphone technique, which is, you know, microphone pointing directly to the mouth and the lips to the grid to maximize the signal to noise ratio. The second growl I'll record by using probably the most common mic cupping technique, which is, you know, wrapping your hands around and creating the tunnel and singing into it. And the third growl I'll record by using another popular cupping technique, which is the partial cupping, where, you know, singers will hold the microphone like that and only partially cup the mic. Okay, here we go. Oh, I'm going to enable the track. Okay. Now, as you can see straight away, the difference in level are huge. You can see that without cupping, or even just with the partial cupping, you know, you get quite a quiet signal, but with cupping you get a huge boost in signal. So I'm just going to make sure that the other 2 growls here are more or less at the same level as the cupped growl. Let's say about a gain of 12. Okay, good. I'll do this one for 12. Okay, good stuff. Now we have them all at the same level, we can listen back to them. Okay, now I'm going to play these again on a bounced version so that you can listen to them on your own monitoring system or through your headphones without the influence of the microphone on the camera. So here's growl number 1, here's growl number 2, and here's growl number 3. Okay, so as you could see from the actual screen there, the first immediately noticeable trait is the huge difference in level between, you know, the normal growl and the actual cupped growl. This creates a number of problems, partly because, say if you're doing a live gig, if you're not cupping all the time, the engineer will be forced to adjust the level of the gain on the microphone channel to avoid distortion whenever the singer goes to cup the microphone, and this can create untold problems for the engineer. The other noticeable trait is the extreme type of EQ that cupping the microphone actually creates. As you can see, when even though my growl isn't great, you can tell when I'm holding the microphone normally, you know, there's a nice balance. You know, there's enough lows there, and the high frequencies are present and they emphasize the distortion, and it's fine. However, when I cup the mic, when I tunnel cup the mic, high frequencies are cut and low mid frequencies are boosted tremendously, and this gives that auditory illusion I was talking about of the vocal pitch being lower than it is. Now this creates problems to live sound engineers because those frequencies tend to make the vocals muddy and unclear, and they're usually the type of frequencies that sound engineers try to EQ out of microphones. So if you as a singer go and cup the microphone, you're actually reintroducing a problem that the engineer probably tried to get rid of beforehand. As for the third cupping technique, as you can see, it doesn't make too much of a difference in level, but it does tend to emphasize high mid frequencies and make the vocals kind of nasty and aggressive. Now, as I said before, some people like the way cupping the microphone sounds, and that's fine. If that's your sound, then go with it. Generally speaking, however, it makes your vocals sound very unclear. Now, if you're singing distorted, then it's not really that important, but if you're singing clean, cupping the microphone will take the clarity out of your vocals completely and make it impossible for people to understand what you're singing about. Generally speaking, from a sound engineer's point of view, I would advise vocalists not to do it. It doesn't make you sound good, generally speaking, and not necessarily because, you know, cupping itself doesn't sound good, but because it creates a number of problems for the engineer, and therefore it makes it less likely for you to sound good live. Having that being said, I wouldn't be of the stance that, you know, cupping is for pussies or is cheating or anything like that, because as you can see, there's nothing cheating about it, and it's actually very viable. If you're a vocalist that finds itself in a situation where it's either cup the mic or strain your vocal cords and not be able to sing for a week, then cupping is, you know, perfectly acceptable. Better to do that and not sound great than actually, you know, ruin your vocal cords and not be able to sing for a week or a month or whatever. Now, I hope you enjoyed looking at this video, and as I said, anything artistic is up to yourselves. I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact me through my channel. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for watching.